Hello, everybody. We are back at Compass and Anchor Fitness and Performance with the one and only Derek Marset.
Hi.
Great intro. Today, Derek had written a blog about post-workout protocols, basically. Kind of debunking myths about post-workout strategies and things that people had heard you should do versus what's true and what's not. And we thought we could dive into both pre and post workout regimens and debunk some of the myths that are out there. I know I've definitely fallen into some of those for sure.
Yeah, they're myths for a reason, right? It's one of those things where there's a bunch of information, some of it's good, some of it's bad, a lot of it's bad.
Yeah, there's saturation of like, you should do this, you should do that, this is what's best, fuel your muscles, protein and carbs, whatever the heck you want to do after, no fat, this and that.
Oh, never fat, don't do that.
You'll slow the absorption of any of your protein and carbs.
Oh my gosh, God
totally.
forbid it's slower.
Oh, I've fallen into that.
Yeah.
I don't put any fat in my smoothies.
Yeah.
So I am interested, as much as I'm sure everybody else is, in terms of, both pre-workout and post-workout, because you always get on me for not even eating before I work out.
Sure, yeah. Well, here's where it's tough, right? So it's pretty obvious. Everyone's a little bit different in terms of what's going to make them feel good.
Right.
Right? And the sensory aspect of workouts, of training, is really important. You have to keep that in mind. Because if you don't, then what's going to happen is a less experienced person is going to rely heavily on the sensory aspect. Maybe they did everything to a T, but because it didn't, like, quote unquote feel right, they won't ever do it again, or it didn't work for them, so they don't give it a
What
chance.
didn't work and what sensory aspects?
So some things like, one of the things that I tell people all the time is, in order to avoid an issue with their blood sugar dropping too aggressively, they should try to eat something, let's call it, no sooner than an hour before a workout. And the reason I say this is bodies are really, really good at storing glucose, storing glycogen, right? And obviously that's one of the most efficient sources of energy for us. Just pertaining to like the breakdown and utilization of energy in the body through the Krebs cycle. So we won't go crazy on that, but let's just kind of keep that as like a standalone, right? So we know that that's easy, and storing it is, humans are really, really good at storing glycogen, at storing sugar.
Right.
But the vast majority, especially non-athletes, right? So people who aren't professionals or semi-professional athletes, a lot of people don't have really strong routines as far as their nutrition goes.
Right.
And some people are like heavy exercisers, but they're not great nutrition people, or vice versa. And what we see a lot of is people, especially in the early stage, is people who come in and they don't have great nutritional protocols or routines. And what happens is they don't eat for like breakfast into lunch,
right,
or something like that. And they back end a lot of their calories. And as a result, they're still utilizing the calories from the night before, right, for their energy for that day. So they don't have a lot of stored energy to use for the workout, especially if they're not a regular workout person. They don't even store enough as it is to fuel performance yet.
Right.
So that's an adaptation, right? You have to, the more stress, your body's like, oh man, we gotta start storing more glucose,
right,
because they're gonna, the body's gonna anticipate that a little bit more effectively. So that's one of the things is, eating an hour beforehand. And I like to tell people to have some fat and, have like a nice balanced meal. I think people get a little bit crazy on a lot of things. One of the things I'm sure you're gonna ask me about, we'll talk about, shakes versus food and, all that. And it's really do what works best for you.
Right.
Do what makes you feel good. And then, make small changes over time.
Right. So, like, if you're not, you know, that you can't eat a huge meal before you work out, don't worry about not eating a huge meal, but have something in your stomach.
Absolutely. You know, if it comes down to the difference of not eating anything versus eating a little bit, just eat a little bit. Like,
Right.
what is this fake standard that we're trying to create for people? You know, it lacks context for most people, and it lacks specificity. If you don't feel good eating a big meal before doing a workout, are you like, you know, if I'm like, hey, you're
Don't do
wrong,
it.
you have to eat that big meal, otherwise you're wrong, otherwise your workout is useless. If I were to say that to you and you were to go do that and then you felt like garbage, are you likely to continue doing that, or are you even likely to continue working out?
Right.
You know, there's a good chance you have a really bad experience and you're just like, well, if this is what I have to do just
Right.
to get in shape or just to feel decent, well, this is counterintuitive to me. I feel terrible.
Yeah.
Do what you're going to be able to do most consistently. I think that's what's most important, is whatever you personally can do consistently is what works.
Okay. And I think I can speak for, knowing the fads and trends and things that are out there. We might get some people who are thinking, well, I've heard of fasted state cardio, and if I eat, then I'm only burning what I eat versus, trying to tone up or lose weight or whatever it is. And, what you touched on before is your body will go into that starvation mode and almost feed off of your muscles for energy at that point. So I think can you kind of talk about debunking some of that?
Yeah, so I'm really careful about the saying starvation mode and things like that, because it's a really slippery slope. And there's really no such thing as that. It's like an oversimplification of something that's really, really complicated. So I
Yeah.
don't want anybody to take that away from this, because if it were that simple, then everybody would be great, and then we would just barely starve. So let's try to rephrase this a little bit. So as far as going through that as a concept, right? Walk me through this, because that's really, there's a lot there. So let's start at the beginning. So
So what is your take on fasted cardio then?
it's a tool,
Okay.
and it's a great tool, okay? But just like anything, if the rest of your diet is garbage or lacks substance and consistency, it's not going to save you. It's not going to help you lose the weight,
Right.
that you want to lose. Largely people see something like fasting or fasted cardio or something like that, and they say oh yeah, I'm going to do that, because it's really simple and it's an easy thing to do, and
Right.
it's not change their diet, because that takes effort and work, and this isn't a magic pill, but it's close.
Right.
I can just go do that thing and it's not that difficult. I just have to climb steps for 45 minutes without eating. It's not that simple.
Right.
It's a tool,
Okay.
and I think it's great. The thing about doing any sort of steady state cardio is you have to consider at what point are you utilizing fat for energy. A big concern is how much glucose you're utilizing for energy. So it's all about timing.
Yeah.
So certainly fasted cardio can be effective, but again, it's a tool.
Okay. And then the idea of eating an hour before allows for the digestion of that and to fuel your workout, versus some people who I've heard kind of saying, I don't want to burn the calories that I just ate versus burning fat that I want to lose.
Certainly. Well, you don't really have a choice in the matter, in a lot of ways, which is fine. At the end of the day, it's a week and a month worth of calories that you're looking at. So you're looking for the net effect, not the
Right.
gross amount. So that's important to remember. So a lot of people are they say, I don't want to burn the calories. That it doesn't make any sense.
You're gonna burn them anyways.
You're gonna burn calories just by blinking your eyes.
Right.
The reason why I say no sooner than an hour is there's something called reactive hypoglycemia, And it basically has to do with the way that your body utilizes and stores glycogen. And again, that's like the sugar that your body uses for energy. And this concept is based on, your body will take the glycogen that's already in your liver and it'll evacuate it, and then that's going to get pushed into your bloodstream, and it's going to ultimately work its way into your muscles, right? And the food that you just ate, that's going to get broken down and utilized. And please understand, this is a huge oversimplification. So
nobody wants to go into
yeah,
metabolism anyways.
So that gets pushed into your liver for a longer term storage. Okay. Now, if you do that, as soon as you start eating, that's part of the process. That's part of the metabolic process. So as soon as you start eating, food goes into your mouth, your body starts to do this, because that's part of motility.
Right.
So when that happens, if you were to go and just start like cranking out workouts, right, and you are an untrained person, right, a trained person likely has enough glycogen stores in their muscles already. And they're just kind of on like autopilot at this point. They just have good routines and they're doing their thing, and it wouldn't affect them negatively. A person who is untrained and who doesn't have a good routine, and they go to eat and then work out inside of that hour, and again, everybody's a little bit different. Maybe it's 30 minutes for some people. It depends, but an hour is usually what I say. They could actually like completely dump all of their glycogen. They could burn through it really, really fast just by increasing their heart rate and their body temperature. And really crazy things can happen. I've seen it before. People, they black out, they can have seizures, like they could do these things. And it's because there's not enough glucose in their body. Their body starts to shut down really, really quickly.
Yeah.
And like I said before, humans are really good and really efficient at like the reuptake, the regeneration of this energy. And so, the liver, starts to do its thing and push back out again. You have stores for this, so you're not going to die.
Right.
But it's not fun. It's really uncomfortable. And I mean, nobody wants to seize any of those things. But the point is that if you were to choose not to eat and you didn't have good glycogen stores, or you were to choose to eat too soon, that could happen. I have seen it.
Right. Okay. So besides eating, an hour before a workout, are there any other like pre-workout kind of must-dos, or like things in your mind that are essential for pre-workout?
Absolutely. I think that some staples inside of that, outside of just nutrition, I think are movement specific. And what I mean by that is a lot of people skip the warm-up. And warm-up is, one of those generic kind of catch-all terms of like, just move your body and just like increase your temperature. I'm like, yes, that's part of it. But also movement preparation is huge. I really like to utilize some, kind of standard staples. And what I mean by that is, utilize a generic, very simple, like blood flow style warm-up. So whether it's walking, riding a bike, jumping rope, something that really anybody can do. And it's not complicated, doesn't require any technical ability. I think that's really, really important, just to get a good sweat, get your body warm. And then after that is movement preparation. So the initiation and activation of muscle fiber. And so maybe it's squats, maybe you start just like doing some squats, or you do a little bit of like light foam rolling, and some mobility work for your legs, for your hips, for your ankles. I really think that stuff is underutilized, especially in an untrained community, likely because it's considered complicated and foreign. I think that we as a fitness community, as professionals, could do a much better job at continuing to kind of like bang that drum of pre-workout, like the warm-up aspect. I think that's huge. Everybody talks about the nutrition because it's kind of obvious, you should probably eat if you're going to go do stuff. Like, you should probably eat food, like, just in general.
Yeah, and I think people are looking for answers in respect to that.
Certainly, I don't think people know to ask the question about preparing for movement. So maybe that's something that we could go in a little bit more specifically about.
Yeah.
And probably do some video with that too.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
But I think that's a big one that is undersold.
Yeah, I agree. So, okay, so moving on to post-workout now.
Certainly.
You debunked a few myths. Do you want to talk about those?
Yeah, sure. So, a couple of myths, they're really specific is what they are. And one of them is, you have to have, a bunch of protein, immediately afterwards. Otherwise, you're not taking advantage of the anabolic window. Science is not on the side of the anabolic window. It's like a bro term that doesn't really exist in educated circles. There's been quite a few studies. I won't reference any directly right now because I would butcher it, and then somebody would call me out and I would feel bad. But
save yourself.
Yeah. Pat it. I need the bumpers here. But I can definitely post a few of the links to a couple of really good studies that just science is not on the side of the anabolic window. It just doesn't make any sense. Like I said, humans are really, really good at recovering, and they're really, really good at taking nutrition and utilizing it, whenever it's available. They're good at surviving, as we've clearly seen.
Right.
So that was a really big one, is like you have the 30 minutes or the hour. It's changed over the years, like whatever it is people say about an anabolic window, but it really doesn't exist. So we talked about not forcing that. It's important to eat. You should eat.
Right.
You should feel good. Eating after a workout has tremendous psychological benefits. It does have physiological ones, but you're just not in a rush to do it. You're not trying to force something down your throat.
Right.
The big thing is, I'll continue to hammer this, is do whatever you're gonna do most consistently. That's what's gonna work best. If you like to eat a meal and a meal is accessible to you and you can do it every time after you work out, you should keep doing that. That's great. If you have a shake and you like to do the shake and that's what you do afterwards, then keep doing that. If it works for you and you feel good doing it, go for it. It doesn't matter. Just don't sit there and be like, I have to do this thing even if you hate it, because that doesn't make any sense.
No, you won't do it.
Yeah, you just won't do it. And then guess what? Nothing works when
and
you
you
don't do it.
won't enjoy anything that you're doing.
There's no data that way.
Right.
The other one is no fat after workouts, and I just don't know what that's about.
It's about getting, come on, Derek, it's about getting the protein and carbs to your muscles fast enough that they can start the recovery and regrowth process without fat slowing down the absorption.
I'm sighing because I'm sad. That doesn't make any sense. I guess I can see why people would say that and what they would do, but fat's great for you. It's great for your hormones. I don't really have a lot to say on that.
I think it's all about timing with it, though. I think, meaning that's what people say.
Sure.
It's about timing with fats because, I have a degree in nutrition. It's you learn, okay, you add fat to your diet to slow the absorption of sugar so your blood sugar doesn't spike as quickly. So they use, I guess, that has translated into recovery.
Certainly.
And a lot of people have adopted that.
Sure. The properties of fat are indicative of, blunting the effects of blood insulin and, the negative effects of cortisol and things like that. But like I said, the first point that we made about timing is that it doesn't matter.
Right.
And as a result, it doesn't matter. Fat can make things go slow, fast, up, down. It doesn't matter because the timing around when you eat around your workouts, it's not very important. Okay. It's at the end of the day, a day of workouts and a day of nutrition doesn't matter at all. It's really comes down to the net of what does your week and what does your month look like. You know, are you consistently getting quality workouts that you're recovering from, and you're supplying yourself with the appropriate quantity and proportions of total nutrients, calorically, macronutriently, micronutriently. You know, are you doing the right things? Yes or no?
Okay. So you're saying more that the direct post-workout nutrition is not as important as the full day, week, and month.
I would go as far as saying it doesn't matter at all.
All right.
Yeah.
You heard it here.
You heard it here first.
I mean, that's you know, different than a lot of things that I've heard, and I think different than a lot of things that people out there are reading and hearing. So it's interesting.
Certainly. I mean, it all comes down to degrees of intensity, right? So let's take like an average male. We just say, you know, I'm like an average guy. You know, average guy, like 5'8". I'm not 5'8". I wish I was, but you know, 5'8", 200 pounds, right? Maybe they work out a couple times a week. You know, they eat pizza on the weekends. They have a few beers. Like, you know, this person it's safe to say they're not a competitive athlete.
Right.
You know, they're probably not even very lean, right? They're probably around 18 to 20% body fat, which for a man, depending on how old they are, is, you know, it's the low side of high.
Yeah.
Right? But that's pretty average, pretty normal for people to just kind of live that way.
Right.
Is that person's meal timing going to matter?
No.
Largely, it's not going to matter at all. It's,
Right.
you know, are they going in a positive direction or a negative one? So I'm not saying that it will never matter.
Right.
I'm just saying that for like 95% of the population, it doesn't matter.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I hear that.
It's insignificant is probably the verbiage that I should utilize. In fitness, for whatever reason, the general population, and it might be because it's sexy, but the general population of people gets fed the extremes. They don't get the here's what's like gonna work for majority of people. They get the like, here's this professional bodybuilder who's been using test and growth hormone for years. They have the perfect diet. They drink the perfect amount of water, and doing this is the best thing for them. Yes, well, they are the 0.01%.
Right.
And maybe that very small, subtle change would be the only thing that would make a difference for them. But for the average person, it's not going to matter at all.
Yeah, I think it just goes back to people, you know, when I was kind of in that mindset of soaking up all of the marketing and that kind of thing that was thrown at me, it was give me the answer to looking like someone else or
Sure.
like reaching that, you know, albeit unrealistic, but reaching that like person's look or the way that I think I should look and feel, right? So I wanted answers versus what I was doing now clearly wasn't working.
Well, that's a really interesting take, and I'd like to expand on that, even though it kind of like goes off a little bit on what we're talking about.
Yeah.
But specifically, that's kind of part of the problem, right? Is that we're looking at this person as they're the end product for us. That's what we want to be, aspire to be. That's what we're working toward. And that person is telling us what works best for them right now
Yep.
as the end product. And they're not telling us what did they do when they were 5, 10, 12 years ago, before they could even consider being half of what they are right now. What did they do before then? It's all about stepping stones. And what I mean is, when you aspire to look or perform a certain way, you have to look at it from the stance and the level of, here's what I can do right now that's going to give me the most benefit. Then once I get to that point where I've exhausted this methodology and this, this diet, this program, whatever the case is, you need data. And so once you plateau, quote unquote, once you get to that point, you say, okay, what's the next level?
Right.
If you just jump to the furthest level of intensity, likely you
Won't sustain it.
You won't be able to do it, and it'll be too far advanced for you to get any results from it anyway. You skipped a whole bunch of steps, and if society has showed us anything, it's that specifically in fitness and performance, there's no free rides.
Right.
You have to do the work, and the work takes time.
Yeah.
But if you can't understand and start from the very beginning and understand, like, you got to go through these steps, you got to do this stuff, stop thinking about 5-10 years from now, because it doesn't matter if you don't do the right here, right now. Right. And I think that's really important for a lot of people to think about. It's that there's a lot of information out there and there's a lot of tools, but not all the tools are for you.
Right.
Not yet. You'll get there.
Right.
But you got to do this first.
Yeah. I mean, if I can just speak on my experience has just taught me it's really like just consistency with what you can sustain. If my nutrition coaching career that was short-lived, but was there, it was a lot of extremes and people not being able to sustain, one extreme diet because they were seeking one extreme look that wasn't realistic for them. So it's all about finding your own threshold, your own equilibrium, and your own balance and everything. And I think that in itself takes time for people to understand what that is for each individual.
Totally agree. And that's the hard part. That's the psychology portion of, of performance and fitness and wellness. And it's letting people know that it's okay to be who you are and where you are right now, and being upset about it it's not going to get us anywhere. It's not going to help you reach your goals.
Right.
It's going to cause more stress. It's going to make this whole process
Harder.
make it not only harder. It's going to probably make it detrimental.
Yeah.
It's probably going to set you back because you got all these stress hormones and you're all like pissed off all the time. You're not going to sleep really well.
Yep.
It's okay to be you. And I think something that, for me, I think about this a lot. People don't enjoy doing things that are easy, right? We talk about happiness a lot.
I hate that
This
concept.
is going to get super meta, so sorry.
We're so far off post-workout.
Well, yes and no. It's the journey is really important, because if, think about anything you ever got for free, right? No matter how valuable it was, no matter how, how much access you had to it and no one else did, no matter how rare it was, you don't appreciate free things.
Right.
You blow free things off.
Yeah, you don't have to work for it.
Exactly. You always appreciate things that are hard, things that you almost couldn't do. And that's really what like happiness is made up of. It's accomplishing hard things. And I think it's really important that like it's okay to be happy while you're working on something. You don't have to like pick a thing and say, when I look like that, or when I get here, or when I do this thing, I'll be happy.
He's blowing up.
When I accomplish whatever I'm trying to accomplish, I'll be happy.
No, it's
You
the
won't.
never-ending journey.
Absolutely. You won't be happy.
Right.
That's not true.
No.
It's an absolute never-ending journey, and
You have to be in the here and now and appreciate what you're doing, honestly, and like allow yourself to like give yourself the credit for the work that you're doing and feel confident and feel empowered by it is really what it is, to be motivated to do more.
I wish more people thought that way, because
Yeah, me too. I say this all the time.
it's
But that goes back to like
so
being
powerful.
okay with you.
It's so powerful.
Yeah, it is. We can do a whole talk on
We could do so much. Just like
I mean, I'm all about the emotional intelligence
Oh, yeah.
stuff anyways, so go meta on me anything and I'm good. But getting back to the topic, so are there any other like post-workout myths or like what are your like takeaways or things that you would really tell someone to focus on post workout?
Put yourself in the best position to recover. You know, we talk about not rushing to eat anything. You know, you don't have to force it, but just like that, you don't have to force protein, on yourself either. Protein's great for you.
Mm-hmm.
You want to have, the appropriate amount of protein for how much lean body mass you have. So you want to take in plenty. And I think that's, if you're gonna, if you never measure any of your food and measure anything, I would still say try to measure your protein at the very least.
Yeah.
Because it's great for you. But again, it's all about timing in terms of what works best for you. Don't force a shake on yourself if you hate shakes.
Right.
Don't feel like people say 30 grams of protein, you have to get it. That's such an arbitrary,
Number.
random thing to say. Where did that come from? Just an average? I hate averages. Averages are stupid. Everybody's different. It's just that's so weird.
Oh, if you could see Derek's face right now, you'd see the
So
pain
sad.
that's on his face. And you mentioned stretching, though.
So I actually am the first person to say I think stretching is stupid. But again, it's because of why people think they should be stretching versus what they should actually be doing. So I'm far more of a believer in increasing your active range of motion and mobility, right? Stretching, a lot of people try to create more passive range of motion. So trying to touch the floor. Why do you need to touch the floor? Is there something important for you touching the floor? That's just unimportant, right? It's non-mission critical. But stretching post-workout is there's a very, very specific benefit, and it's very, very important. It's returning your body to its normal range of motion. All right? And the reason why it's important to do that, outside of the obvious, but you want to get back so that way when you're finished working out, you can go do whatever it is you're going to do after your workout, right, without risking injury, without risking, small irritation or strains and things like that. When you return to normal range, you're safer, mm-hmm, and you can move more freely. Exercise, specifically strength training, you're contracting your muscle bellies, therefore you're shortening them.
Right.
Albeit for a short period of time, but you want to be safe during, whatever it is you're going to do the next 24 to 48 hours. So I'm actually a big fan of post-workout stretching.
Okay.
And it's, again, not to increase your range of motion. It's to return to normal.
Okay.
All right? I could talk forever about how I hate stretching, but in this particular instance, I think it's very appropriate.
Fair enough. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
Maybe we can do one on stretching, too.
Oh, gosh.
And you can go on a rant.
Then we'll have to videotape that, because you really want to see how nuts my face gets.
Are there any other important takeaways from, the value of anything pre or post that you want to add?
It's like anything. It's find a routine that works for you and try to execute on that routine consistently. Mm-hmm. And then monitor it.
Yeah.
Data is your friend, especially if you're trying to accomplish any type of aesthetic or physical goal.
Yeah.
Nutrition is a hugely important part of that. People are always what percentage of importance? I'm not going to play that game. It's 100%, 100%. It's 100% nutrition, 100% workouts.
Right.
We're not going to play that game. But it's do what you can do most consistently and monitor what you're doing. When you monitor, you have data. When you have data, you can see patterns. When you can see patterns, you know when to make changes.
Right.
And that's important. If you can't do that, find yourself a trainer or coach who will do that. And
right.
if they don't, then you need to find a new one.
Right.
But that's really, really important. I'm pretty adamant about that. And other than that, just you know, we talked about this on the last podcast and probably on the first one too, because I'm repetitive. Find yourself in a position where you're comfortable asking questions. Don't subscribe to commonly understood norms, especially in fitness, because the common knowledge in fitness is usually wrong because it lacks context, and they're almost always trying to sell you some type of supplement.
Right. Yeah, it's true. It's true. So to me, it sounds like, you know, to wrap this all up, it's very individualized and, but not as complicated. You know, it's finding what works for you. And I think, you know, we'd love to hear questions, comments from anybody who has, you know, specific questions about their own routine. And, you know, reach out to Derek if he can help you further to create sustainable changes for yourself. So with that, we will sign off from Compass and Anchor Fitness and Performance. And we look forward to coming back with the next episode.
Thanks, guys.